So hopefully that started. Perfect. So welcome everyone. This is our second webinar as part of our Teacher Encounters programme, and today we've got Connor from RWE Renewables, and as many of us know, research is currently showing that there are that teachers and careers advisors are key influencers for young people when it comes to making decisions about their next steps and futures and careers and that sort of thing. And so that's where this Teacher Encounters programme has been born, basically. And it's here to help develop and support education staff so that they're more confident, more informed when they're having those discussions with the young people that they're working with. Series of webinars, and this being one of them, and then also a series of one-day workplace visits as well, all happening between now and the end of this academic year, so a bit by July time. And as many of you all know, they can all be found on our website and also on the Eventbrite page as well, which at the end of the session I'll put in the chat so you've got it too. During the session, if you have any questions, then do feel free to put your hand up, and we'll do questions as we go, or indeed put them in the chat, particularly if you've lost your voice like Sally, and then I'll flag them to Connor as we go. So as I say, extremely pleased to welcome Connor Nicholson, who's I think I've got this right, business and stakeholder coordinator from RWE Renewables UK, working on the Galloper wind farm, which if any of you know the Clacton coastline, you'll be very familiar with seeing it up on that coastline. I'm not going to steal any of your thunder, Connor, by introducing the business at all, so I'll hand over to you. But so if anyone's got any questions as we go, then do pop them in the chat or put your hand up. Thanks, Connor, over to you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Yep, so just as mentioned, I'm Connor, so just feel free to shout my name whenever you want if you need to ask a question at any time during this. Hopefully you can all see my screen, so just get a thumbs up, or you can see the presentation. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, as I said, I can see faces, I can see the chat, so anything comes up, any questions, ask away as we go through this, and I'll be trying to spot them. And Hyder, yeah, if you can just call them out if they come on as well. So as mentioned, I'm the business and stakeholder coordinator for Galloper Wind Farm, so yeah, nice mouthful, but that basically just essentially means I handle a bit of what we call the commercial side, so making sure that we do operate as a business, but also this really lovely part with the stakeholders where we get to engage with anyone involved in other communities and anyone that kind of wants to know anything about Galloper. So Galloper is one part of this huge conglomerate company called RWE, and we'll kind of go into that more throughout this presentation. Throughout this presentation, I'll really kind of focus on Galloper and a bit wider on RWE and a bit more wider and wind in general, but hopefully a can kind of transfer over and hopefully kind of gives you a good understanding. I'll start the presentation away then. Oh, actually, I couldn't really miss this opportunity. I think we've got a little quick poll to do first, so to hopefully get everyone's minds into the offshore wind industry. So if we want to start with that.
So the first question, what is the output one?
Yeah, let's start with this one for a while.
There you go. So you should see a poll come up on your screen. If it's not in the screen, then look in the chat and it's there.
So yeah, hopefully some of you might have done your research. If not, don't worry. But this is just a quick question of the output for Galloper wind farm. So just this one small farm in the UK. I think that's everyone's responses. All right. Yeah, so people have done their research, so that's all good. Yeah, it is 353. So yeah, well done everyone. So 353 megawatts, so that's about enough to cover enough electricity for 380,000 homes, which if you know your 6 towns, that's about, or cities now, that's about 4 Colchesters. So quite a lot of power. And just our one part there. We'll move to the next one as well.
Next one. There you go.
Yep, so what is the current UK offshore wind capacity? So this is including all offshore wind farms throughout the UK, so Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England. Good. I think that's all there as well. So a bit of research. It is currently 14, but I can see where people's getting 30 from. The 30 is the UK government target by 2030. So we are really pushing to nearly, well, at this moment, double our capacity in offshore wind. The UK currently has about 28 gigawatts in onshore and offshore, but the offshore is definitely growing most rapidly, the fastest, and hopefully, or not hopefully, fingers crossed, we will be hitting that 30 gigawatt target.
Last one.
Yes, please. So what is the number of offshore wind turbines in UK waters?
Got a complete split there.
Yeah. So the actual answer is 2,652. So that's only the number of turbines currently in UK waters just of at least January this year. So it is rapidly growing. We've got a few wind turbine farms in construction all come up at the same time, and yeah, really growing number. So that's actually quite a lot. You think scanning the sea area, but all kind of mixed sizes. So a lot of focus now will be on larger turbines, less numbers, but it all depends on the current needs of the farm. So thank you, everyone. I think I kind of got you in the mindset for a bit of offshore wind. So I'll kick off with the presentation there again. So just to introduce myself again. Oh, I need to there you go. Just introduce myself again then. So yeah, Colin Nicholson, I'm business stakeholder coordinator, kind of covered that, work Galloper, but I'm fairly new there, kind of been there since August 2022. So coming up to what, 10 months, 8 months. But yeah, really kind of fitting in well there. And I kind of got my background through environmental earth sciences from the University of East Anglia. That's kind of where I really got into renewable energies and offshore wind especially. That's kind of where it all really kicked off my interest. And ever since then, just been kind of dying to break into the industry and finally got the opportunity to do so. So work as a part for Galloper Wind Farm. So we're situated in Harwich. We've got a wind farm that's 27 kilometres off the coast at its closest point. Closest point is actually in Suffolk, so it's right on the Essex-Suffolk border. We've got 56 turbines there and a 353 megawatt capacity. So we're just a small part of RWE, so RWE Renewables UK. They cover wind farms and other projects all over the UK. And they're one of the world's leading energy companies. So they actually started off in Germany as a coal mining or coal generating power plant, and then kind of quickly switched off from there from the Rhine region. And they're now, yeah, one of the world's largest energy companies. So RWE is a shareholder within Galloper. Galloper is what we call joint venture. There's different groups of different companies. RWE is one, they own a 25% stake, and they act as the operator as well. So out of interest, the other shareholders that we have RWE, we have Macquarie Led Consortium, another 25% share. Sumitomo International Bank in Japan, that's 12.5%. ESB is 12.5%. And the other 25%, it will come to them. Siemens Green Energy, the other one. So Siemens Financial, they kind of invest heavily in kind of green and upcoming projects. So a bit of a kind of simple one here. What are wind farms? I'm sure everyone kind of understands the general gist of a wind farm, but this slide just really is to highlight that windmills have existed through history. The whole idea of using wind energy isn't particularly new. It is kind of been around for millennia, essentially. But the actual idea of using wind to generate electricity is quite new. So the earliest wind farm in the UK was built in 2003 offshore, and that was in North Wales, North Hoyle Wind Farm in North Wales. So that was also an RWE project. So I'm quite proud to have started the first commercial business there in the UK, or the first commercial offshore farm. And it's rapidly growing industry, as kind of touched on earlier. So in January 2023, 56% of the UK's electricity was generated by zero carbon sources. Of that, 36.4% was on offshore wind. So it's really kind of growing, as you can kind of see soon. It is really filling the need that we have in the UK. So as a general one, the importance of wind energy, why is it growing? Why is it in such demand? And why do we really need it? Well, it's a clean type of electricity. It produces no CO2 when it's generating electricity. It's a renewable source, so as long as the wind blows, we'll carry on producing electricity. And it's a crucial step in combating climate change. So this graph here, it looks a bit busy, but it's kind of relatively simple. The big shows the annual greenhouse gas emissions. If we follow in no climate policy, so the big kind of pink chunk, that shows that emissions will just carry on and continue to increase. Current policies in the orange that show that we'll start decreasing our emissions ever so slightly and just keeping it in line within 2.5 to 2.9% degrees Celsius. But that most important target that I think most people might have heard of is that 1.5%. That really kind of crucial that there'll be no impact from climate change, or no impact if we manage to keep within 1.5% for 1.5 degrees Celsius. You can see that's that kind of greenish colour right at the bottom. So we're quite a way off that yet with our current policy. So we still really need to kind of grow this industry and start thinking of new or expanding on our low carbon sources. So just to kind of show really that the UK is, or offshore wind is the UK's largest growing source of electricity. You can see here in 2022, wind produced about 0.25% of the UK's demand for electricity. So it's really kind of growing up there. And there's a little stat there at the bottom, compared to a typical natural gas plant, Galloper displaces roughly 3.5 tonnes of CO2 a day at our maximum output. So when our turbines run at their most efficient and they're kind of really pushing through, they stop essentially 3.5 tonnes of CO2 entering the atmosphere through a gas plant emitting the same or producing the same. So it's really quite an important step that we need. And again, to show that in real life, in a real scenario, this was taken about 3 weeks back now on what was just a kind of like an average day. It was quite an averagely windy day. It wasn't particularly gusty. It was just kind of good. But we managed to produce, on average, wind in the UK, offshore wind in general, was about 33.3%, so a third of the UK's demand at this time. So you can kind of see this chart shows a bit of a day. So it just shows a day in the UK of the UK's demand. You can see that gas is that kind of blue spot up there, the big blue one. That makes up most of the UK's demand currently, or meets the UK's demand most currently. And then you can see at certain points of the day, wind really kind of picking up. So when wind is blowing and when there's wind available, so you can see in the middle there's hardly any wind blowing. That's when gas can really kind of takes over. But as soon as we have that wind availability, we can start shutting off our gas plants, start shutting off our coal plants, and start relying more on our low carbon source. I touched on RWE earlier and the kind of growing organisation that they are. So this slide here just shows a number of offshore assets that are currently in operation that are owned by RWE or in operated by RWE. So you can see there's a number around the UK. I think we've got about 9 there in the UK, and then this shows just Europe as well. So RWE are actually worldwide. They do operate in America, Australasia, Asia as well, and in South America. So they're really kind of growing, and all these places are trying to meet new demand for offshore wind. And this next slide just shows a few other wind farms that are actually in development. So these are ones that aren't actually up and running yet, but these are ones that soon will be. So you can see flicking between them, you've got another almost doubling of wind farms in operation. A few of those ones that are marked as under construction are actually now in operation. So number one, Kaskazi, that's in operation since October last year, and Triton Null in the UK, that just went operational about a month ago now. So yeah, we're kind of really getting there. And Sophia will be the next one. So Sophia should be ready, currently in construction, probably about another year or two away, but that would be the UK's biggest wind farm when it kicks in. But it's not just RWE that operate wind farms offshore in the UK, they're around the world. This slide here shows a number of wind farms just in our little area. So what we call the South North Sea area. It's just off the east coast. It's a really good spot for offshore wind because of its shallow waters and lots of wind availability. It's nice and easy to construct in, and also quite a reliable source for your wind. So it shows lots of kind of projects even going in there. In this diagram here, green ones are ones that are already in operation. Blue ones have gone through what we call consent process, and they're now kind of ready to be developed and ready to be constructed. And the purple ones are going through that consenting process, so they're kind of in that early development stage. So it is still even growing, much more growing still there. But I can talk about Galloper Wind Farm quite a lot more because it's obviously my expertise in my area. The Galloper Wind Farm touched on it with 27 kilometres off the Suffolk coast, generate enough power for around 380,000 homes. We've got 2 buried subsea export cables, so each one of our cables is 45 kilometres long, and they reach the grid at Sizewell, so they join where Sizewell's nuclear power plant is. And we're within water depths of 27 to 36 metres. So we've got 1 offshore substation that provides 2 export cables to join at Sizewell. That's where it meets the grid from our 56 turbines. So just a bit more on where we are here. So our operations and maintenance base is in Harwich, which is based in Harwich International Port. Everyone knows it. Everyone's taking the train. It's kind of like a newish blue building. We kind of operate out there. We've got a pontoon where our technicians will go out and sail from every day. Our expert cables join at Sizewell, and during construction, we relied on both Port of Lowestoft and Great Yarmouth for a lot of our vessels and for a lot of our places and planning, actually. So you can see it really kind of impacted the whole of the East Coast when we were in construction. So our turbines then, so we got, like I said, we've got 56 of them. They comprise of all different pieces. So we've got the nacelle, the tower, and foundations. Each one of our turbines is about 180 metres tall from the sea level to the tip of the blade. So 180 metres is essentially the size of a gherkin. You've seen that. And each blade is 75 metres long, so it can fit the wingspan of an Airbus A380, which is your kind of typical jumbo jet if you're going transatlantic. So they're absolutely huge pieces of kit. And just to reach the nacelle, that top part there is about another 110 metres, so taller than Big Ben, to get to that main hub, that main body. We have what we call 6.3 megawatt turbines. So that's just the kind of maximum output they can produce at a time. So 56 of them, that gives you 353 megawatts that you can produce. They're created by Siemens Gamesa, so they kind of have all different parts. The blades were made in Hull, the nacelles were made in Denmark and then transported over, and the steel was made in Belgium for the towers. So lots of different pieces, kind of all lots of logistics, kind of get it all together and actually construct it. So you can see there's a picture there as well of a little vessel. That's actually how our technicians kind of access our turbines. That's how we get onto them every day to do our kind of work and maintenance. The vessel will actually push up against the ladder. They'll tie themselves in with their harnesses, and then they'll scramble up before the waves catch them, essentially. And this just shows a few pictures from construction. So this is kind of shows the engineering behind it, the absolute scale of it, really. These big kind of jack-up barges here. One you can see actually carrying the blade, digs itself into the sea, uses its legs to jack itself up, and actually just transports components kind of piece by piece. So the towers are pre-assembled, the blades are pre-assembled, and the cells are all assembled. It's just putting them together at this stage here. Our offshore installation then, so to connect ourselves to the grid, and get everything ready, we had our cables kind of laid. So you can see here in this side, there's a cable laying operation. Sizewell is just behind that crane there. So we use directional drilling to go underneath the beach, pull our cables through, and then along the export cable, the rest of the way was kind of ploughed through the seabed until it reached our substation there. So we used quite a few companies. UK company NKT manufactured our export cables, and we started our construction in 2016, and we were completed by 2017. So our foundation installation was completed in March 2017. Our first turbines were operational by November 2017. So we've been running for about 5 years now, or coming up to 6 years. And this is our offshore substation here. So you can see it kind of looks a bit like an oil rig in a way. That's essentially where offshore wind relied on a lot of, or took on a lot of knowledge that came from the oil and gas industry in the North Sea. They share quite a lot of their common traits about them, especially when it comes to engineering. So our offshore substation looks a bit like a offshore oil rig, because essentially it uses the same kind of construction. They put this big jacket through, put it into the seabed, and that top, the kind of silver bit there that you see, was pre-assembled separately, all assembled, put into a vessel, and then taken out and laid on top of the jacket, the kind of yellow piles that you see there. So it's connect all of our wind turbines. They all have their own cables. They're what we call our array cables. They all connect within to our offshore substation there. They come through the array cables at 33 kilovolts. The offshore substation ramps up to 132 kilovolts, transports it along AC to our onshore substation, which is here. So our onshore substation is located near Sizewell at Leiston near Sizewell. So just it kind of runs into the old infrastructure that was there for Sizewell A. When that Sizewell A was decommissioned, we were just coming online. So it's about a good timing really for us to get onto their network where they connect to the national grid. So we used quite a few techniques really to kind of minimise the impact of the construction, although everyone really likes to see a good massive substation, but actually we dug ours into a berm. So we kind of excavated the ground, make some nice trenches for it, and then we can put our substation in there. So from the road, you can't ever really see this. It's really quite nice and clever, but it's quite a sizable bit of ground. We use what we call gas insulation. So it's meant to keep it a little bit smaller than what your regular air insulated substations are. We use quite a good methodology. We're quite happy with it. And then from the onshore substation, it then increases power again to meet it into the national grid. So it brings it to 50 hertz and increases the voltage yet again, so it can run along the national grid. You can see some of the equipment there. In this video, I hope it starts playing, should show a bit about the construction. Can you see that video?
No, it's just a black screen at the minute.
Let's see if it does.
So we can see the video. We can't hear any sound, but we can see the video.
Hopefully it kind of showcase construction a bit more. I'll show you how they actually construct it. You see that video where they pick it all up and they move it all along. It takes about 1 day to assemble an entire turbine. So you have those foundations already in the 24-hour cycle to actually bring everything into place. Got people looking at the ground to make sure it all lines up properly and then get it all in. So I'll just carry on with this. And then just, this should show a quick summary of the technology that we use. So it might be a good time here just to stop this. If anyone's got any questions about the actual turbines, technology behind it, you can raise them here. We can wait for the end. Nope, it's all good. Okay, so in summary then, our turbines generate power from the wind. Cables are array cables within our turbines. They carry it underneath the seabed, bring it to the substation where it ramps up to 33 kilovolts, or at 33 kilovolts, where the substation then ramps up to 132 kilovolts. So it's more efficient to travel along our export cables, but then connects to the grid at 275 kilovolts from our substation. And then this little diagram here just kind of shows the different parts of it. So there's now kind of a small technical aspects of wind farms that once you've actually constructed your wind farm, and then you've got your offshore substation, and then your whole network to the grid, that you then have to sell that onto an OFTO, so an offshore transmission operator. So they end up now basically in control of the substation, the export cables, and the offshore substation. So they kind of look after that. The whole idea of it is so that any power station can't monopolise the grid at any one point, essentially. So operations and maintenance base then. So we constructed a new one in Harwich at Harwich International Port. On this little picture here, you can see the kind of blue cranes by the cruise ship. That's now where our O&M bases, so we kind of operate out of there. We constructed it in 2019, it's completely just at the end then, and then they closed down shop for COVID, and everyone got kicked out for about 2 years, and then suddenly some got back again. So good to be quite glad to have it nice and back, but it is a lovely new building for us. And we constructed our new pontoon, and it works really well. So it takes about an hour and a half for our vessels to get from our O&M base in Harwich all the way out to the field. It can take about 2 hours, depending on the weather as well. So we've got 60 employees working in there. It's a mix between 30 RWE employees and about 30 Siemens employees. And we work 7 days a week, 365 days a year, all around the clock, making sure the turbines are going. So our lifespan for the wind farm was set at 23 years. Hopefully we kind of goes on further than that, but our lease period is 23 years. We kind of set for that, and then we have to plan for that 23 years. We try and employ locally. We try and work with local schools, local authorities, and we try to get young people in. So you can see that picture there is 3 of our apprentices, our first 3 apprentices that are taken on, but now we're up to 5. So we've got 5 apprentices all learning to become turbine technicians, and hopefully they stay smiling. So to operate the wind farm, I touched on it, takes about 90 minutes to get from the O&M base to the field. We use these kind of crew transfer vessels like these. They carry about 12, but we're looking to kind of upgrade from 12 now to get some more on. And that's how this little picture here shows how our technicians actually get onto the turbine. They kind of scrabble up that ladder. You can see they've got safety harnesses, all sorts of safety equipment, because for us that is an absolute priority. And then these to show a few more pictures of our operations maintenance base. So you can see we've got a storeroom, a warehouse, corridor for storyboard for us, and our control room there as well. So our control room kind of operates out there. And when we actually operate, there's all kinds of jobs that we do. So we can see people doing blade repairs, component changes there. You can see on the bottom left, there's a generator being changed there. Casualty drills on the far right. So we always kind of practice our safety drills, make sure we're ahead at any time, and an oil spill exercise. So we do lots to kind of keep up to date with legislation, our licenses, and just general health and safety. As you can see here, lots of practicing drills, keep it safe. So the Gallup operational team, so we kind of touched on, there's a bit of a split. There's 30 full-time roles for RWE, on my side, and 34 Siemens. So they are a service and maintenance provider. So they have working a contract with us that they look after the turbines essentially. They do all the service and maintenance, and we pay a contract for them. So it's a bit of a split, 30-30. And like I said, we try to keep locally, but we're both supported by teams wider within RWE. So our RWE head office and Siemens, their head offices. We kind of rely on experts and specialists from there as well, but we have our own in-house. So we're kind of a quite big team. We're a small team, but we've got a big source to put on. And for Gallup more widely then, so there's quite a lot we like to do in the community. It's kind of like the stuff that I like to do, I like to get involved with. So we work with local authorities, politicians, schools, fishing industries, armed forces, environment organisations, anyone who has any kind of interest in the wind farm we like to try and get involved with. So we have quite a few funds essentially that we do. And kind of essentially a lot of projects we like to support and get involved in. So you can see there's pictures of us doing things like litter picking along Court Beach, supporting the Green Big Internet at Marketfields Farm, so establishing new habitats, so we can plant some trees there. Sponsors and supporters of the Parks and Welfare Park Christmas party, and also sponsored a pond, or construction of a pond at Rolf's Churchling Primary School. So they can install a pond for some outdoor learning. So like I touched on, we do quite a few funds that we like to engage with and like to build upon, and we'd like to kind of be a good neighbour really within our community. And again, it's not just about money, it's also helping our educational facilities. So we've done a few, we go to attend quite a few STEM events, career fairs, interview practices, presentations, career talks, and also like to actually get involved with schools. So we sponsored an art project piece for Harwich and Dovercourt High School. We got some experts and graphic designers in to really help these art students create a piece that we now quite proudly hang up on our own base reception. And also the octopuses for celebrate the Mayflower 400 at Harwich. And this is a few examples of some of our community benefits just in 2022. So we've had our community funds since Blake Four Construction in 2017. But we have one for the Essex Community Fund, where we now have another agreement for another £70,000 for the next 5 years. They kind of work in Essex, all kind of projects and supports with that. And add into that. We have our own local sponsorship, so we gave about £15,000 to local causes last year, and there's a few examples of what we're sponsored for, and then what we like to do in schools as well. So I know a lot of people here are probably quite interested in for their pupils and students about careers. We have what is available in the wind industry. So this slide here just shows that what I touched on earlier, that we have set ourselves, the UK has set itself a target of 30 gigawatts by 2030, and they plan on increasing that into 50 gigawatts in the next beyond 2030. You see, we almost need to triple our workforce in the next 10 years, or less than 10 years now, essentially. So it's kind of really rapidly growing industry to get in. And we really need to start looking at how we recruit and how we plan to get people the skills that they need to get into this industry. So just an example of a few of the roles we kind of require. So health and safety, environment specialist, performance management, people can look at KPIs and set them. Procurement, people can go out and set contracts, look at how the ways to finance the actual construction and the operations. People who can work in the warehouse, people who can work on our vessels, people who can plan work and manage projects. Stakeholder management, like me. Engineers, people who can kind of maintain asset integrity. Financial accountants, and of course our offshore technicians, the people who actually go out and make sure our turbines is running as efficiently as they can. So here's just an example of kind of careers paths that people might have taken. So like I touched on, we've taken quite a few apprentices. They would have studied things like maths, science, physics, electronics, and then they kind of go on and develop from that. Engineers will have like a great deal of experience in electronics mechanics. So I think we're taking a few on from the RAF. People who have been maintained all sorts of aircraft and such. We recruit quite a lot from the military as well, all other sorts of industrial backgrounds, and even people who, like me, who hadn't come from particularly industrial backgrounds. I came from publishing and finance, and then kind of worked my way into this commercial side of the business, and then into this. So we do like to take any kind of skills that we can, logistics, finance, anything we can. As long as you have those skills that we can transfer into it, you can then quite grow readily into offshore wind. And just examples of some of our previous experience here. So people who have worked in the military, like I touched on, other people who have worked in other thermal power stations, gas plants, steelworks, other apprentices, and people who worked in port facilities, worked within marine and logistics, manufacturing, and all sorts of kind of work there. And hopefully that should be the end of it. Hopefully that's been a good bit of insight to Gather Wind Farm. Hopefully I'll see some of you at the workplace visit. We can kind of get a bit more in touch there. But I'm happy to kind of answer any questions that anyone might have now.
Connor, thank you so much. I've been scribbling down notes, and actually, for me, seeing all those wind farms, particularly off the Clacton coast, it's amazing to actually learn about how they got there and how they stay there, and all of that sort of side of things, because they just sort of, well, to Joe public like us, they just appear, don't they? You don't really know the ins and outs of it. So actually, it's really interesting to see those pictures and that video of it all going on. There is, let me see, if you've got any questions, either pop your hand up or do put them in the chat. There is one here from Olivia. Who's the best contact for school and community engagement? So you said there about all the great things that you're doing with schools and colleges. Is there a specific person to go to in the organisation to request that?
So for locally, it'll be me. So if anything to do with North Essex, it'll be me. I'm not sure. Depends where you need really. So because unfortunately there's not really many wind farms for RWE down south or
Sure.
South Essex way. But I'll put my email into the chat. Reach out to me if it's something that we can do or something we can look into. Then yeah, quite happy to.
Perfect, thank you, Connor. There's also Olivia, just so you know as well, there's also industry champions as well. So if you do need any employee engagement of any sort, actually, but I know that Connor's part of that list. So if you do need anything to request for business support, then you can always do that through our industry champions, and I'll put the link to that in the chat in just a second. So thanks, Connor. And Connor, yeah, perfect. You just put your email in there. You'll be bombarded in just a sec, I'm sure. Karen's asked in the chat here, how long is a day for a technician if they spend 90 minutes getting to the site via boat? So yeah, that's true. You said it was quite a journey to get there. So then how long are they actually out there for?
Yeah, it depends on the requirement of the work. So we have what we call a summer servicing campaign. So essentially in the summer when you're expecting there'll be less wind, so you're going to generate less electricity from the turbines anyway, you might as well shut them off to get people working on them. So we're quite busy in the summer, really quite busy with technicians out there, and sometimes they can spend 12-hour days more essentially out on the farm, or they commute from the base, doing their work and then coming back. Or over the winter when we're trying to generate as much electricity as we can because there's lots of wind resource, it's really quite blustery. We tend to do kind of smaller tasks, more like maintenance and inspections, kind of checklist tasks. So they could be out there for just a few hours on one turbine and then head back. Just depends on the needs. Obviously, if the turbine needs a kind of closer inspection, or if an alarm goes off that needs a bit of an inspection, then they can be sent out at quite short notice, like the next day, that same day, depending on the wind farm you're on.
Yeah, like you say, just depends what the day's like and what's in the diary for the repair and maintenance, I guess, doesn't it?
And of course, they also get days where they don't actually have any work on because either we're kind of up to date with turbines, stuff has gone wrong with them, or that it's actually too windy. The weather's too bad for them to get out of the field. So we have safety limits in place for what we call our transfers onto the turbines. So we monitor a significant wave height, which is just essentially an average of wave height. If it goes over 1.7 meters, then we declare it too unsafe for our technicians to access to make that jump essentially onto the turbine ladder. And that's when we'll call off work. So we'll say, no one's allowed to go out, we'll call them weather days.
It is almost amusing that if it's too windy, then you can't go out to them. So
yeah, pretty much. And if it's too windy, you don't want to have to shut a turbine off to let one else in because you might be making a bit of generation out of it.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you don't want to be stopping it anyway. Tom, I've just seen your message in the chat there about a copy of the slides. The recording for this actually will be available on YouTube after, so we'll send you through the link for that so that you've got access to that, so that you've got it. Connor, I've got a question for you. You said that you came through, you did a degree, and then, like you said, you've been in publishing and financing, and then came through. With that, was there a reason for that route through, like doing a degree, or you said also that you have apprenticeships as well? Is there any pros and cons to doing either route that you can see in that business?
I think definitely if you have that interest as a younger age, you can go through the apprenticeship. It'll give you all the experience, all the kind of everything that you need. For me, it was kind of just a combination of general life. We don't really know what happens, but I had my interest and I knew where I wanted to end up and kind of found myself into it. But as I've touched on, the industry is going to rapidly expand, or it is currently really rapidly expanding. We're not looking particularly for an expert in engineering who knows exactly how a turbine generates electricity. We're looking for people who have those transferable skills. We need, like any business, a wide variety of skills in any operational wind farm or even construction. So throughout the whole life cycle of a wind farm, we need different roles. So if you have that interest, then you will have the transferable skills. You'll have a skill that we require.
Yeah, it was interesting from the list of all the different roles for the offshore operators that actually there was only a couple of engineers, which is what you would, me not knowing, is sort of the role that I would expect, like construction to start with and then engineers after. But actually I think they only made up maybe one or two jobs on that list. The rest of it was procurement, finance, bid writers, all of those other, like you say, transferable skills coming in.
Yes, absolutely. So at Galloper especially, we've got about 3 engineers who kind of maintain the asset integrity. They kind of work in the office. We've got about 10, 15 technicians, control room operators as well. And then the rest is made up of back office staff, so people like myself, procurement managers, finance managers, control room managers, logistic managers, marine managers, all that kind of stuff.
It's those sorts of roles that, like you say, are so transferable between different industries, but are often the forgotten ones that are running the joint, really. In the businesses, aren't they? But they're often the forgotten ones behind the scene. Like you say, it's we're always saying to young people, it's about that transferable skills and where it can take you, and where so many people now have such an interest in sort of sustainable energy and that sort of side. You might love finance, but actually you can also put your interest in energy into or sustainable energy into sort of using the two skills together, can't you? Has anyone else got any other questions? Perhaps I'll just ask one more then before we disappear. So you mentioned there your apprenticeships and how I think you said you had 3 and actually you're now going up to 5, so there's a couple more coming along, that sort of thing.
Yep.
How do people, I suppose in general, apply or look for roles in your business, but particularly for the apprenticeships? What do you look for in them? Is there an age range that I know, particularly in construction and engineering, usually you have to be 18 and not 16. So how does that work for your organisation?
Yeah, so for apprenticeships, RWE kind of handles the apprenticeship. We'll hire them for our site as a developer, but what will actually happen in an RWE apprenticeship is they'll go to North Wales for 2 years. They'll go to a specialist college called Pendrillo in North Wales. They'll live in Chester, where they kind of get help expenses by RWE for their accommodation, food allowances, and they'll spend 2 years at Pendrillo. Then they'll go off to the actual wind farm for a year as well, and then they'll be based. That'll be the end of their apprenticeship.
Wow, so it's actually sort of almost a bit of a residential apprenticeships that they do if they're going up to that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So they take anyone who hires any wind farm who hires any apprentice around the UK will go to Pendrillo. So our current apprentices there, they've got people from up to Teesside, we've got people from down south near Brighton, and all over the country. So in himself, in the East Coast.
I mean, that's quite an opportunity, not just to work in that industry, but to sort of almost, it's a little bit like still having that university experience, isn't it, if you're going away for that as well? So that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what a lot of them have said as well, and they'll tend to kind of live together, they'll socialise together. Like you say, it is a bit of university experience. And in terms of what we kind of look for in apprentices, anyone who's got an interest or has shown a kind of interest, demonstrated anything mechanical, so you can fix up cars, that kind of stuff, anything to do with electronics, any sort of people who've taken on welding, fabrication, but especially mechanics. Anyone who has any kind of interest in electrical mechanics in general, has kind of shown experience in that field, will go on there. You'll get all the kind of training that you need to work on a turbine. You'll get all the specialist certifications that you need to get. So one is called GWO. That's basically a course that before anyone steps foot into a turbine, they need to pass this GWO course. So we get all that on their apprenticeship.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic. Fab, are there any other questions from anyone else? I feel like I've taken over the questions, so let me see if anyone else has got any. No, we're all silent by the looks of things. So in that case, I'll draw us to a bit of a close. Oh, I'm saying that Sally's just writing in the message. Let me see if that's a question before I close us off. While Sally's typing that, just to mention again, thanks Sally, just to mention again that the recording for this will be on our YouTube channel, as will the other webinars that are taking place as well. There is a workplace visit that's going to be happening as well, and you can book that through the Eventbrite page, which we'll send through to you as well, so that you can book onto that as well, so you can go and see what it's all about. And if you do have any other questions, then feel free to email the Careers Hub, or indeed if it's specific about Galloper Wind Farm, then you've got Connor's contacts in the inbox there as well. And anything else that you need, please do always give us a shout. Other than that, I'll stop the recording so that I remember. And other than that, thank you all